Hey y'all, it's Katie, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. I really do appreciate it. And today we are going to be diving into the GlamLite Ice Cream Dreams palette. I've been able to do a bunch of looks with these, and I finally have my review for this all sorted out, so I wanted to come on screen and share with you guys 3 of my favorite looks, share with you guys a tutorial, and explain kind of the pros and cons with this palette, and then also my overall thoughts and opinions at the end. So if that sounds interesting to you, we can just jump right in here in just a minute after we do my Instagram shout out for today. Today's Instagram shout out goes to Makeup by a Bird. She commented on my most recent post that I had put up, so thank you so very much, Ashley, for commenting and leaving me such a sweet comment. I really do appreciate it. She has a phenomenal Instagram page. I've been following her forever, so definitely check her out. But you are my Instagram shout out for today, Ashley. Thank you so much. And per usual, if you want a chance to be featured as my Instagram shout out, all you have to be doing is following me on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92, and if you interact with my posts as I put them up, I randomly select someone to shout out when I sit down to film. So now with that said, let's go ahead and just jump into the tutorials. I have 3 tutorials to share with you guys where I use the GlamLite Ice Cream Dreams palette to create the look, and I'll give you guys my overall thoughts and opinions after that, and also include some swatches. So let's jump right in. Alright, as we are diving into this first tutorial, I just want to say that if you're curious about anything else I used on my face, like my lipstick, the base that I used for the eyeshadow, that sort of thing, I always link it down below. If you want to check that out, it'll be down there. But we're just going to be diving right into this first shade here, which is Pistachio. I'm sure you guys guessed this, but it was definitely the shade that I was the most excited to try. And as you can see, I think it goes on really nicely. So then moving on to Green Tea, as you can see, I placed it down a little bit, and then I started to blend and mesh it because I wanted to mesh it with that first shade, Pistachio. And while I don't think it necessarily blended away, I feel like you can kind of tell in the outer corner where it's looking a little thin where I was blending it out. Not really like the colors being removed, but definitely just a little bit lighter than it looked when I first set it down and before I started blending it out. So definitely something I noticed, but I continued on and went on with the next shade, which was that mango shade, and I'm just putting that right above the green to continue to blend that out. Again, this shade went on nice. It's a very light shade, definitely a very light yellow. It's that shade of pastel yellow that I think is very beautiful in person, but it's honestly pretty difficult to detect, especially that could be due to the fact that it's right next to a green, so it kind of all morphs and meshes together, but something to note. And then I went in with Mint Chocolate and put that right above that green tea shade and kind of blend it up into the brow bone and just create a very soft and diffused look. Once that was blended out, I did go ahead and take a little bit more of that green tea and place that back into the crease. And as you can see, I feel like you can see a difference, like it's a little bit more evident when I placed it back on there. So maybe these shadows are just the type where you really can't blend because you just blend the color away and you just kind of have to place and leave them. But moving along, I'm taking the shade Honey Lavender and I'm packing this on my outer corner. I know it's a bit of a lighter color, but I was wanting purple in the outer corner and I felt like blue and purple weren't that far away on the color wheel to, have a difficulty meshing and blending these together, and I kind of wanted to bring that green tea shade down a little bit more and help everything blend together. So that was my thought going in, but as you can see, as I'm working to try to blend these two together, that point where the purple crosses into the area where the blue, I already set the blue down, almost like the point where it's not tacky anymore. I couldn't really get the purple to go any farther past that, and then when I tried to bring the blue down into the purple and kind of mesh those two together, again, it really didn't want to go. So I was a little stumped at this point because I felt like there was just a very obvious and evident line there where the two didn't want to mesh, and the only thing I can think of as to why it didn't want to mesh was because it didn't have a tacky base to adhere to. But anyway, moving on, after I put down some glitter primer, I went ahead and took that white shade, which is French Vanilla, and I am putting that right in the inner corner. This, if you saw my first impressions tutorial where I used the pink strawberry, this French Vanilla is exactly the same texture as the strawberry. It's very flaky, it's very crumbly, and it's very difficult to use. I really was as careful as I could be to apply this well, and so as not to get a lot of bunching or just flakiness or just too much texture, because it can just show texture so easily. And I kept it really close to my inner corner and I feel like I got away with it, but it's definitely one of those shades that I just don't prefer to work with because it's just that chunky, easily get too textured looking shadow. But anyway, after that, I took Lemon and I put that, kind of connected the two together. And Lemon is definitely a much easier shimmer to work with. Definitely prefer. One thing I will say with all of the shimmers in general, they have a very pretty sparkle to them, so that even if they're just a simple shimmer, there's so much sparkle reflect going on every time you turn your head. It is very beautiful. Then the next shimmer I took was Birthday Cake, and I'm putting that on the rest of my lid, kind of going out into the purple. This shade is just like Lemon was. It's very smooth and easy to pick up on a nice flat brush. I had no no issues with it. It was very pigmented as well, and I thought it blended into the yellow very nicely, though the purple was a little touchy. Again, you know, it being a shimmer green going into a matte kind of pastel purple, I can see why it was having trouble, but I was still trying to make it work. As you can see, I took more of that purple and really worked to try to mesh the two together, and I think I got a pretty good blend where the purple meets the blue. But as you can see, I'm going to get up here close where the purple goes into my crease. I don't even know if you can really see it well on camera, but there's just a clear divide that I can see, at least, where the purple and the blue just would not mix. Maybe it has something to do with my primer. I thought it was very well blended out, but that could be it. Or like I said, maybe these shadows just do best when you place them down on a sticky, tacky base and then just gently blend. But if you try to kind of mesh and blend the colors together or on top of each other, maybe that's just the issue you'll have as you're seeing me have here. But anyway, at that point, I played around with it a little bit more, but I just went ahead and put on my wings, gave me a little bit of a bigger wing to hopefully hide a little bit of that. And then I went to my lower lash line, which I took the shade Honey Lavender, and I just smudged it out underneath there. And then after that was smudged out really close to the lash line, I took Cookie Monster, and I am buffing and blending that just to diffuse the edges and make sure there's no harsh lines from that purple. And then last up, I took just a touch of mint chocolate, and I used that to just get a very nice and soft blend around my eyeshadow and just to make sure there's no harsh lines. I thought this blended very nicely into the edges of the purple. I don't know if it's because it had the help of the Cookie Monster before I went on top of that, but whatever the case is, I did like how the lower lash line turned out. And then for my inner corner, I'm going to be taking that shade Blueberry Cheesecake. And as you can see, it's very pretty. It definitely has a pinky purple color, and I thought it was really pretty. I didn't mind having the different color inner corner. But anyway, after that, the look is all done. And overall, I think the look is really pretty, but I mean, you can let me know what you think down below. I think the outer corner is still very evidently like having issues. I just couldn't like solve it, and maybe it's just a matter, you can let me know this as well, but maybe it's just a matter of color theory, and I shouldn't have put that shade of purple and expected it to mesh well with that shade of blue. Let me know that down below. But wear time though on this look was very nice. The shimmers do go up into my crease a little bit throughout the day, but I don't see any fallout from like the glitter or the sparkle in the shadow onto my face, which I appreciate, though I did wear glitter glue on this look. But overall, I thought it was a very graceful wear. The mattes, as I said, the yellow just almost looked like it was gone, and there was definitely a little bit of a wear down with the mattes, but nothing crazy. Alright, moving on to look 2, I wanted to do an all matte look, as you guys saw in the intro. And I'm just starting out with that shade Raspberry, and I'm putting that right into my crease on the outer corner, not coming all the way in, keeping it mainly on the outer half of my crease. It blended just fine, I didn't notice any issues. And then that next shade that I took, which was Red Velvet, no real issues. I thought it was very nice and pretty. It was very pigmented. Both of these shadows I thought took no work to apply in my crease. They meshed really nice in the middle. I didn't notice any kind of thinness to the shadows at all. From there, I'm just taking a touch of Mochi, and I'm putting that on the top of both of those shadows, kind of blending them out. I'm just using this shade, this pastel shade, as kind of a softener for the other two shades, just to help it mesh and blend up into my crease really nice and seamlessly. And then for my outer corner, I'm taking Blackberry and packing this on. Now, Blackberry is the second darkest shade in the palette, and as you can see, when you first put it on, it's like, oh, that's nicely pigmented. But the more I work with it, actually, it's not that deep of a color. I was kind of surprised. In my eyes, that's more of like a mid-tone shade. And if you're someone who likes to go very deep and smoky with your outer corner like I do, for me personally, there wasn't any shade in this palette that really got me there. Even the darkest shade Chocolate is definitely more of a lighter dark shade, if that makes sense. So on top of that Blackberry, I wanted to add a little bit more purple to the outer corner and not have the whole look be so red. So I took that Honey Lavender shade, as you can see, and just wanted to add a little bit more purple to this look. And I think you can also see here, as I was saying with the first look, I think these shades just need to have a tacky base. Where I put that purple onto the lid directly, it really does pop and look really beautiful. But where I put it over the black cherry, it kind of just puffed away, if that makes sense. Like, it definitely lightened the black cherry, but it only lightened it. It didn't give it any purple look to it or any purple color, if that makes sense. Again, maybe I'm just expecting too much out of pastels. But anyway, not to say that the outer corner is terrible. I just wish there was a little bit more meshing with that purple shade. But from there on, I'm just going to go ahead and cut my crease with the ABH lid primer. I forget exactly what it's called, but I'm just using that to cut it out and making sure it's nicely tapped out, especially where it blends into the matte, but also just tapped out all over to make sure it doesn't change the pigmentation of the mattes that I'm putting down. And then I'm going to go ahead and take Pastel Pistachio, and I am laying that all on the lid. And working with the green in the crease I thought was really great, and then packing it on here I thought was absolutely amazing. Like, this green is beautiful and such a unique colored green. I really do love it. Taking a little bit more of that purple shade, I'm just packing that right on the rest of the concealer that's left and just using it to mesh between that green and the pink. I wanted the purple to kind of just be that stepping stone between the shades and get a little bit more of a seamless blend between them. And as you can see, it really adheres to the concealer that was tacky very well, and that purple just pops, and I like that about it. But when it comes to like meshing with the red again, or even with the green, it was a little trickier. It meshed with the green a lot easier than it meshed with the red, and I don't know if that has something to do with colors and whatnot, with the color theory and color wheel, if that's just to be expected. But it's definitely something I noticed that in general it was just a little tricky to get these colors, that purple, to want to mesh with either shade, and not even just like mesh, but diffuse, I guess you could say. That it's almost like, as I have been saying this whole time, where the green ends, where that green shadow already took that tacky base, the purple didn't really want to go anywhere else. It didn't have anything to stick to, and same for the the other side with the red. It definitely just kind of dusted over. I just felt like I was dusting the shadow over the green and the pink. But at that point, I stopped and finished up my face, and I'm just going to be doing my lower lash line, which I'm taking that purple shade, Honey Lavender, and packing it right against my lower lash line. And then just taking a touch of Mochi, I'm using that to diffuse the purple out a little bit. But I finished out the rest of my look, and then I'm taking that pink shade, which is Rainbow Sherbet, and I'm using that as my inner corner highlight. Just because I kind of wanted to just try something different for my inner corner, but after I put it on, it just looked a little too pink, so I ended up going back to French Vanilla and just topping it a little bit on top of that pink, just to give it a bit of a more white pink, and I really liked how that looked. I like that final look for the inner corner. But yeah, that is going to do it for the look. As you guys have already seen this look in my intro, for me personally, my only issue is just that blend between the green and the red, and then the outer corner. I just feel like it's a little rough, a little less blended than I would like. I just wish that purple had been able to mix with the green and the red a little bit more. Like I said, not that it's bad, it's just me and my personal preferences. I like a little bit more of a seamless blend. But yeah, that is the look. Wear time was great. I didn't notice any issues at all. It stayed really well. It lasted all day. My crease on the very outer edges where that Mochi shade was, it looked a little faded, and like it wasn't really popping by the end of the day, but I wasn't too surprised since it's such a pastel. Like, Mochi's a very pastel pink, and overall, like, my lid was great. There was no creasing, there wasn't any major fading, so wear time was very good on this one. Alright, moving on to my third and final look, I'm going to begin with that mint chocolate and placing that into my crease and just building it up on the inner half of my crease. And as you can see, it pops right away. I had no issues getting this placed into my crease. And then once that's down, I'm taking orange cream and I'm putting that kind of on the outer half. I'm not going all the way to the outside of my crease, but I'm almost all the way there, I guess, in that middle section. And also working to mesh and blend those two shadows together. I wasn't too mad about how those two shades blended together. They kind of met there really nicely and blended together, so no issues there. Moving on to the outer half, I'm going to be taking raspberry and packing that on the outer corner and kind of bringing it up and meshing it with that orange cream shade there and just kind of connecting it all around. I wanted something to really pop on the outer corner, something kind of pastel but still almost neonish, and then also be able to blend with that middle shade. So this one I thought would do it really well, and as you can see, it's very nice and vibrant. But something I also noticed, I don't know if you noticed as I was blending it out, but I feel like that middle shade orange cream really dulled as I was blending and working with this, so I'm going back and just adding a little bit more, trying to kind of pack it on and then gently blend it into the two shades. Then using Mochi, I'm just going right above all of that crease work that I just did and using it to kind of blend up into my brow. I like doing this to just help with that very effortless blend, so there's no like harsh line where the shadow ends and where my brow is. And this Mochi shade was perfect for these type of pink, more pinky looks. I thought it worked very nicely. And then once again, just putting a little bit more of that orange cream back into my crease because I felt like it had faded. After putting on some glitter primer, I'm going into Rainbow Sherbet and putting that on the first third, I guess you would say, of my lid. And this shade, again, is kind of like French Vanilla and Strawberry in that it almost wants to get thick and chunky and really textured looking, but if I'm very careful, make sure I only pick up a little bit at a time and really push and press it out so that it doesn't have a chance to get textured, it works really well. Moving on, I'm taking cotton candy and I'm filling the rest of the cut crease in and then meshing it with that pink on the inner corner. And this shade is beautiful. Cotton candy is very pretty. It's very easy to work with, nicely pigmented. It's definitely a pastel blue, so nothing too popping, but it's got a good pigment to it. It's got a very beautiful shine to it. It's a very pretty shimmery reflect. It feels really smooth. It goes on easy. Yeah, I like this. This type of formula is what I like from GlamLite, and more than half of the shimmers in this palette are this formula, so I do like that. But anyway, at this point, I just stopped and finished the rest of my makeup and then came back on to finish my lower lash line. And I'm taking that black cherry and putting it right against the lower lash line, keeping it really close to the lashes so I'm not bringing it down too far. And then I'm going to take that mint chocolate and I'm putting that on the inner half of it and then blending it underneath that black cherry. And once that was mixed, I just took a touch of orange cream and I used it once again to just kind of connect everything together, make sure there was no harsh lines, and just to create as effortless of a blend as I can. For the inner corner, I just decided to stick with what was good, and I took French Vanilla, though this time I took French Vanilla. I did spray it because I don't think I mentioned it in the previous tutorial, but it's a very chunky shadow, and using it on your inner corner is definitely the easiest way to, but even on the inner corner, it can just kind of want to chunk up and fall everywhere, so I tried spraying it, and it definitely works so much easier, so that would be my recommendation. Overall, I really like how this turned out. It's definitely one of those color combos of just like interesting color combos that I like to do, and I like how the pink and blue shimmer on the lid is kind of swapped in the crease with the blue and the pink in the crease. I love doing little effects like that. I feel like it makes the look just so much more unique and pop just a little bit more and give it a little bit more interest. But yeah, overall, I really like how this look turned out. I thought it meshed really nicely. There was a couple little issues, as I said, with trying to pack that shadow back into the crease, but at the end of the day, I got the colors there. I got them popping. It just took a little bit more work, and overall, I really like how this look turned out. It was fun, different, and just makes me think of like a pastel rainbow cotton candy. Alright, so those are the three looks. Per usual, I love to hear which one you guys like the best. You guys know I love an all matte look, so honestly, this look, I wish I had time today to put a little like glitter liner or some graphic neon liner in this. Oof, that would have been so pretty, but I've been very busy and I didn't want to take the precious time I can take to film right now when he's sleeping to do that, so I just omitted it. But I really like this look, so I think this would have to be my favorite one, but let me know yours down below. Let's move on into the swatches. Per usual, when I do the swatches, I just put them over the screen as I'm talking. When it comes to swatching this palette, it feels nice. Like overall, I really can't gripe this palette at all when it comes to swatching them. Everything I think looked very promising. Sure, there was a couple shades like that honey lavender and whatnot, the matte shade that looked a little chalky, but overall, everything just was so smooth. The shimmers were just beautiful. They feel like Super Shock, and then the mattes are just so buttery smooth. They just feel delightful. Strawberry and French Vanilla are definitely the two that are very chalky and flaky, and I don't like using them on my lid. French Vanilla is fine as an inner corner highlight. I just have to be careful because it is very chunky, but all over the lid, it makes my eyelids look so textured, and I don't like that, so that is really the only kind of drawback when it comes to their shimmers. Other than that, I feel like the shimmers overall were very nice. They definitely have that Super Shock texture, so if you don't like that sort of thing, but for the vast majority of these shadows, I did feel like they just looked beautiful, and they have that ability of giving you a lot of color when it comes to these colors, but also each one of these colors has so much like glitter reflect shining through them that even if you put it on and you're wearing it through the day and it's kind of not, I call it grunging up, but getting a little messy and things are moving up into your crease, it's still really beautiful because when you turn your head you just see all this sparkle. So that aspect of it is very pretty. This definitely might be a little bit nitpicky, but for me personally, when I look at this palette, I feel like they could have omitted probably half of the brown shimmers that they put in here, and I'm talking about salted caramel, cookie dough, rocky road, pecan praline, and strawberry cheesecake. I feel like you could have had one, maybe two of them, and you really don't need them all. I'm going to put over the screen me swatching them all side by side. I just feel like they're so close. Yes, they're a little bit different, but like on the eyes, there was one day I was doing a look and I used two of these and you really couldn't tell. One looked a touch lighter than the other, so I feel like that aspect, which kind of surprised me when it comes to GlamLite. In their color story, I feel like they're always just going for really fun color stories, and to have so many neutrals in a very pastel, fun, colorful palette kind of confused me because for me personally, when I see these kind of browns, I don't always think to pair them with pastels like in the crease, and maybe that's just me, but as a whole, I feel like this is a nice palette. But as you guys heard me talk through this tutorial, there are definitely a couple shades where I feel like maybe because they're pastels or maybe just their formula, they don't like to build on top of each other. And again, it depends on the colors. I feel like it was specifically with like the greens and the purples. I felt like the pinks built on top of each other. This look doing this crease was really easy to do. I didn't have any problems, but especially with this green tea shade, you guys saw like it kept puffing away and didn't want to stick on top of, I think, mint chocolate chip, or maybe it was Cookie Monster, I forget exactly, but it didn't want to stick. And I used that in a couple different looks, and each time I just noticed that problem of like it would just dust away. Almost like it needed something, it needed a tacky base in order to adhere to, and if it didn't have that, if it was going on top of another shadow I'd already put down, it just kind of got funky, honestly. I don't even know how to describe it. So when it comes down to it, when I look at this palette, do I recommend it? Do I enjoy it? Do I want to create more looks with it? Is it a good pastel palette? Now, I've been trying a lot of pastel palettes, and I do plan to do a battle of the pastel palettes and share with you guys all the pastel palettes that I have in my collection and do a ranking video. I have a couple more coming in that I'm going to be testing, so once I've tested those and I've been able to figure out where to rank them, I'm definitely going to do that video. But at the time of me filming this, my favorite pastel palette is the Gimme Glow Pretty in Pastel bundle that they're bringing into a palette, so that's why I count it as a palette. So in my mind, that's kind of what I compare all other pastel palettes to, and this, it didn't hit that. So I don't want to go on and on about this because I feel like when I go on and on about the little pet peeves in a palette, I fear it comes across as being a negative review. I think this is a nice palette for the price and for the color story. If you're someone who's scared of pastels, I feel like this is a great way to go. If you're someone who likes very light pastels, I feel like this is a great way to go. But if you're someone who loves loud color and you want to try very loud pastels, I don't know if you'll be happy. Well, I should say I wasn't happy with it. So put it that way. Maybe you'll love it. And again, I do think it comes down to technique as well with this palette, because I noticed when I really focus on pressing and really not blending too much, like if you blend too much, if you like to get those ombres, that's when I feel like I ran into problems, especially with the little blue greens down here. That's where I feel like I was running into problems. So again, it might be one of those palettes where, or the eyeshadow formula where technique really does determine if you're gonna like it or not. And for me and the techniques that I use, especially in my crease, I just like to do a lot of blending and get a really diffused look in my crease. I was a little disappointed because when I would do that, A, the color would kind of wash out and just diffuse out and almost like chalk away, I guess is a good way to describe it. And then two, it just didn't give me enough depth, which it was a bit of a disappointment because with these two shadows up here, I was really hoping for depth in this look. And while you can get depth, as I've already said in the tutorial, I feel like it's just a medium depth for me personally. Like, I like a lot more depth. Maybe that's just me, maybe I'm crazy, but I enjoy a really smoked out and deep outer corner, and these two, they just gave me that mid-tone look. For me, like I said, it didn't beat out my Gimme Glow. My Gimme Glow pastels are definitely just still reigning supreme, so it's just a nice palette. I'm glad I gave GlamLite another chance because I've always been curious if I just had a, one-off with GlamLite's burger palette. I was pregnant and kind of sick when I was trying it, so I was like, did you just weren't in the mood to try makeup and is it your fault kind of thing? So I'm glad I gave them another chance, but having tried their formula again, I think GlamLite is going to be that formula where if I love the color story and if I really, really like the color story, I'll get it. But their formula isn't my favorite. It doesn't blow me out of the water, and it's not my favorite to work with, so I'm not going to become one of those like GlamLite stands where each and every palette that they launch, I'm always excited to get it because I like their formula. Does that make sense? And I feel so bad because so many of my friends here on YouTube in the beauty community who create videos love GlamLite, and I'm like, when I got this, I was trying to get on the hype, and the more I used it, I was just like, you know what? It's just not your favorite. Not that it's bad. Please don't misinterpret this review. I just think it's not a palette formula that's my favorite to work with because of the techniques that I tend to use when I do my eyes. So I'll leave it at that. Overall, if the cons that I mentioned don't bother you or aren't an issue for you, I think you'll like the palette. So I hope this review was helpful. I feel like I'm kind of all over the place, but I mean, when I don't absolutely love a palette, I find it very hard to review because I don't want to drag it, because I definitely don't hate this palette, and that's always like where I'm tiptoeing because I don't want my review to come across too heavy on the cons and for you guys to be like, oh, Katie hates that. I don't hate it. I just didn't love it as much as I anticipated. And maybe it's one of those palettes where, or the brands that I just have it hyped so high in my head because I hear everyone loving it that when I tried it, it just didn't meet my expectations. And that could be it, but overall that's going to do it for this review. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you got this palette, let me know what you think. Am I alone here in the little issues that I faced or in my preferences? Do you do your eye look differently? Did you enjoy this palette? If you got it, do you like it? Leave it all down below. I love to talk with you guys. And above all, I just hope if you were on the fence or if you were trying to decide if you should get this palette or not, I just hope my review was helpful to give you guys some pros and cons, some things that I noticed using it, and like I said, help you decide if you want to get this palette or not. But yeah, with all that said, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up on your way out, as it helps me in the whole YouTube algorithm. And yeah, if you want to continue getting daily content from me, I'm over on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92. And with all that said, I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys.